All right, welcome back into the show, and I am super excited for this episode today. Today, we're going to be talking about week one of the NFL season. I'm going to react to some of the games. Kind of a crazy week here. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as I can. Going through it, you guys know I tend to talk a lot about it, so I'll try to jump around the league and kind of give you my thoughts on each team and kind of discuss everything. I wanted to start out with Monday night, and that was last night. The Jets were able to beat the Bills in overtime 22-16, and I wanted to talk about each of these two teams. As you guys know, if you listen to the NFL preview, I picked the Jets to win the Super Bowl. And then 4 plays into the Aaron Rodgers era, Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. And he's done for the year. He's out for the year. We will not be seeing him. And yeah, it's a little rough. It's a little rough. You can't take back your pick, so my pick is still the Jets. And now I have to rely on Zach Wilson. And man, Zach Wilson did not look good in this game. Like it was really tough to watch. It was really tough to watch. I mean, he's just not a great quarterback. I mean, he ended up the game with like 124 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. It really wasn't good. I mean, he's a little bit of a train wreck. It was actually 140 yards. But looking at the rest of the team, I was like, geez, if they just had Aaron Rodgers, I would have been so confident in this pick. Like, Breece Hall looked unbelievable. For first game coming back from a torn ACL, he looked incredible. He had 10 carries, 127 yards, and his first 2 carries, he went for 101 yards, which is just flat out incredible. I've never seen anything like that watching football. He looked great. Dalvin Cook looked pretty good with 13 carries, 33 yards. He also had 3 receptions, 26 yards. Dalvin Cook looked solid. And then receiving end, Allen Lazard looked pretty good. 2 receptions, 50 yards. Garrett Wilson looked good. He had that one-handed catch that was just sensational. I mean, he is so talented. If he had a real quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, it would just be great to watch. It'd be unbelievable. So I'm looking at this Jets offense, and I'm like, okay, like, they're a great offense, and if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, like they should be a Super Bowl contender, and I'm not mad about it at all. And I mean, I've talked about their defense so much, but their defense was everything that it was advertised to be. They were flat out incredible, and they really just got Josh Allen so far off of his game. It was unbelievable. Quinn Williams was great. Quincy Williams, the linebacker, was very impressive in this game. He looked unbelievable. I think Sauce could have played a little better. I know he didn't cover Stephon Diggs the whole game because how the Jets run their system is Sauce kind of stays on one side, so he didn't cover Stephon Diggs the whole game. But I still think he could have done a much better job. Like, Stephon Diggs went crazy in this game. Stephon Diggs had 10 receptions, 102 yards, and a touchdown. He just looked unstoppable. I think it was really the one bright spot the Bills had, because looking at the Bills, they really struggled. I think James Cook looked average. I don't think he's a crazy running back, but the Bills will never be a running team. But I got to talk about Josh Allen, man. Like, I don't know what to do anymore. I have very high hopes for this guy this season. I think he can have an unbelievable year, but this looks horrible. Like, that's the worst, I think, performance I've seen Josh Allen have in his career. I really do, because some of the balls he was throwing were just so bad, and he's taking hits that he just should not be taking. I mean, I was very nervous with Josh Allen this week, and I mean, I'll talk about another quarterback that I was a little nervous with. Then again, I ranked Josh Allen high on my quarterback list. He was still, I believe I had him 3 still. I mean, I was still very high on him. I think he's easily a top 5 quarterback. The talent level on this guy is unbelievable. But I think if the Bills want any chance to win, Josh Allen needs to figure out how to protect the ball. He had 36 yards rushing. He ended up 236 yards, 1 touchdown, and he threw 3 picks. And the funny thing is it was all to one guy. I believe it was, let me see if I can get this right. I believe it was DJ Reed that had him. Let me make sure. Yeah, I believe it was DJ Reed. But I mean, looking at this, I was just very nervous with the Bills. The Bills just didn't look good, and it's a tough way to lose, especially with a backup quarterback for the Jets and having. I mean, the energy from the building just went out the window after this game. Like with Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles, it was just out the window. And then the Jets still somehow being able to win this game. It's really not a good look for the Bills. I'm nervous if I'm a Bills fan. I really am. I don't know what to expect anymore because that's just such a bad game. Let's hope they can bounce back next week, but I'm not so sure. I mean, it's going to be very interesting. All right, bouncing around the league a little bit. Let's go to Thursday night. I did not react to the Lions. The Lions beat the Chiefs, and I am so pumped for that. I mean, unbelievable game here, 21-20. I watched this with my family during the week, and we were so pumped. The Lions starting out the year, and they looked really good, man. They looked really good. Goff really controlled the game well. He went 22 for 35, 253 yards and a touchdown. He looked awesome. They really used Montgomery more in the backfield, and he actually had a solid game, 21 carries, 74 yards, one touchdown. I'm going to be real. I wanted to see more Gibbs. Again, I was very on the pick. I was not sure if I liked it or not. I was like, okay, if you pick a running back at 12 here, he has to be really good. And boy, he was really, really good. I mean, he had 7 carries for 42 yards in this game, and some of the runs were the most impressive runs like I have ever seen. It was unbelievable, some of the runs he was pulling off. I mean, flat out incredible. And he also had 3 receptions in this game, but just the eye test, he passed it completely. I'm all in on this guy. I love him. And then looking at some of the other guys for the Lions, Amon-Ra. I mean, this guy's just so good. He ended up with 6 receptions, 71 yards, and a touchdown. He was great in this game. Josh Reynolds played well with 4 receptions, 80 yards. And Laporta actually looked good too with 5 receptions, 39 yards. Great second-round pick there. That's really going to help us here. He was on Aaron's sleepers list in the draft. I mean, Aaron liked him coming out. Looking at it on the Chiefs side, Patrick Mahomes looks solid. It wasn't the greatest Patrick Mahomes games that we've seen. He was 21 for 39, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. The pick was not his fault. Kadarius Toney had 3 drops and was flat out horrible. He got ripped on Twitter, which was actually hilarious. He ended up deleting his Twitter account because of how bad he was getting ripped on. And I mean, looking at it, Mahomes had no help. I mean, that's just the story of the game. The Chiefs had 4 or 5 drops during the game, and Mahomes just couldn't get the ball down the field in the second half. It was flat out rough. They couldn't move the ball. They didn't score a touchdown in the second half. Not having Kelsey is just huge. And they didn't have Chris Jones on the defensive end. The fact of the matter is, and I talked about it a lot with Giovanni last week, I think the Chiefs are going to be more of a defensive team than an offensive team this year because their defensive game plan against the Lions was flat out incredible. They were all over the Lions screens. And I mean, to be real, Brian Branch, he had that pick 6 after the Kadarius Toney drop. Like, the Lions scored 14 points in this game, and this is supposed to be one of the most dynamic offenses in football. So the fact that the Chiefs were able to force 14 points and not have their best defensive player in Chris Jones, who they just signed to a 1-year deal, that's a little scary to me. I think this Chiefs defense is going to be very tough to stop. But Nick Bolton really looked good in this game. I love Nick Bolton. I think he's an unbelievable linebacker. And then Karlaftis looked really good. They got some guys that are just very nice on this team on the defensive end. I liked L'Jarius Sneed as well, Justin Reed. I mean, and Willie Gay too is pretty good on the secondary. I mean, I like this Chiefs defense. I think this Chiefs defense is going to be the way that they win games this year, and I think Mahomes is going to be good enough to make these receivers get by. And if Mahomes has Kelsey, I just feel like it's going to be a lot easier for him. It was a weird loss for the Chiefs, but again, the Chiefs have a lot of these weird losses. I remember last year, the second game of the season, they went at Indianapolis, and Indianapolis was horrible, and then Matt Ryan beats them. It just happens. It happens to the Chiefs. I'm not saying that this is the same thing because I actually think the Lions are pretty good, but I thought the Chiefs out-game planned us, and the Lions just ended up really sneaking by and getting that win. So I'm very happy the Lions were able to sneak by and win. But if I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm not too worried. You're going to get Kelsey back. You're going to get Chris Jones back, and then we'll see if you should worry. But other than that, I think if you're a Lions fan, you should be very excited and pumped to play Seattle next week. All right, let's jump around the Sunday games. So I'll start. Ravens-Texans is the first one here. This was a weird game. Again, I watched Red Zone, so I saw a lot of, basically, all the games. Lamar didn't look good in this game. He didn't have a great stat line. The fantasy points weren't great, but he had, 3 weird fumbles out of nowhere that just kept showing up on the screen. And one of the fumbles, he didn't even go after the ball. And I was like, what? Why aren't you going after that ball? It's just so weird because you see, most of these quarterbacks, they have that competitive edge to go after the ball. There's a lot of stuff with Lamar where I just don't understand where his head's at. And then there's another play where he throws an unbelievable ball to Zay Flowers, who looked incredible. And, it's just like nobody else can throw that ball. And Lamar's so athletic and he's a great runner. He's a great player, but there's just something about him that really bugs me. I just don't think he's got that competitive edge and that will to win. And that just really makes me not want to rank him high and not really see him as a big threat to anything. And looking at this Ravens team, it just took them a while to get going. They lost J.K. Dobbins. He's going to be out for the season. But this Texans team isn't that great. And I do like their defense. I talked about that a little bit on the NFL preview. I think their defense is solid, and they did a solid job on Lamar. They made him uncomfortable. But 25-9, the Ravens did kind of pull away. They're going to have a big game against Cincinnati next week, and I think that's going to answer a lot of questions for me. I want them to use Zay Flowers because I think Zay Flowers is unbelievable. He looked really good in this game. He's the first Baltimore receiver to actually come through and be good. So that's a good sign for them. Overall, I wasn't too impressed with the Ravens. I need my questions to be answered there. Looking at Bengals Browns, and this is the other quarterback I wanted to talk about. This is Joe Burrow, and I'm not as worried about Joe Burrow as I am about Josh Allen, and that's because Josh Allen, a lot of the problems we saw last year. Joe Burrow, he didn't have a preseason, and this Browns defense is really good. I think my Browns take on the NFL preview is going to be one of the takes that I regret the most, and that's because I just overlooked them. This team is actually really, really good. Their defense is unbelievable, and really the only question mark on the offense is Deshaun Watson. And to be honest with you, that's a great question mark to have because he actually looked solid in this game. He did a really good job against a Bengal defense that really gave people problems in the playoffs. So, I mean, I'm looking at the Browns, and I'm like, the Bengals, we just took care of really easily and did our job, winning 24-3 in this game. The Steelers didn't look great, which we'll get to. I want to get to that game. And the Ravens, okay, they beat the Texans, but I feel comfortable enough to say that the Browns are almost at the same level as the Ravens. So I think this AFC North is going to be very interesting in that sense because I think the Browns are for real too, which gives you 4 teams that could really make it out of that division, and I'm kind of excited to see where it lands. But the Browns really got a big win here. Myles Garrett is unbelievable. He had one play that I saw on Twitter where he did a Euro step and went into his move on the defensive line and went right past the center and right near Burrow right away. I think the Bengals really got to figure something out on that line. And for Burrow, it's his first game. I mean, this is easily the worst game of his career. It's the truth. It's the worst game of his career. And with Josh Allen, maybe I shouldn't have as many questions as I do right now. Again, week 1, a lot of people overreact to everything. Hopefully, Burrow and Allen are fine. I'm not changing my ranking with them at all. I still have Burrow 2. I still have Allen 3. I'm still very high on both of them. But in this case, they just both didn't have great weeks. And, it's tough because they really didn't look good. And it's kind of a struggle there. All right, let's switch to an NFC game. I'm going to switch to Buccaneers and Vikings. And I was very disappointed with the Vikings. Um, they had a lot of turnovers in this game, and Kirk looked solid, but he didn't look great. He got Jutta involved a little bit. Jordan Addison looked pretty good in this game. Madison was okay. Alexander Madison, not great. And then looking at the Bucs, like Baker actually did some stuff, and he was able to finish the game strong. They really ignited themselves in the second half and took the lead in this game. I didn't watch it too much. It didn't really show up on the red zone that much, but just kind of sad with the Vikings. I thought the Vikings would look a lot better. The defense did look okay, and again, I was high on this defense a little bit just because of the Brian Flores ad, and I think he's a great defensive coach and will really help them there. But again, it's early. It's a rough loss for the Vikings. It's a home loss, but the Buccaneers are a little better than I expected. They do have some names on the defensive end still. They still got Vita Vea. They still got Levante David, so I think that's going to help them throughout the year. But Buccaneers overall, I was a little impressed on. I still have them finishing at the end of the NFC North, just at the bottom of it. But I, with the Vikings, I'm a little nervous, just a little nervous. But that's good for the Lions, so hey, we'll take it, right? Saints Titans. Let's talk about that a little bit. Ryan Tannehill's horrible. He's really, really bad. I mean, he threw 3 interceptions in this game and probably should have ended up throwing 6 interceptions. He was that bad. And if there's literally any other quarterback that could play on that team, that would be really great because they would have won this game if he didn't play that bad. The Saints won 16-15, and this was kind of a disgusting game all around. Derek Carr didn't look that great. Michael Thomas and Chris Olave looked pretty solid. Olave ended up with like 8 receptions, 112 yards. Michael Thomas really started the game out strong. But looking at this game, both these teams, the Saints look a little better than I thought. They really couldn't get a run game going. I'm kind of thinking that when Kamara comes back, their run game will start getting going and it'll start being a lot better. But with Tennessee, Derrick Henry looked pretty solid and D-Hop looked pretty solid, but Tannehill looked so bad. They got to figure out that quarterback, and I don't know if it's Will Levis. I don't know if it's Malik Willis. Both those guys, Malik was bad last year, and what I've heard from what Will Levis is doing, apparently he's not doing great either. So I don't know what you do if you're Tennessee. I really don't. They're going to have to figure something out because if Tannehill continues playing like that, it's going to be rough. Atlanta, Carolina, basically the story of this is Bryce Young looks really small, and that's not a good thing. Ryan Russillo talked about it a lot, how Bryce Young just, he's small. Like Russillo saw these guys in the draft combine, and he like watches them and really like kind of scouts them, and he talked about how it's very difficult for small quarterbacks to be able to do it. And he was saying like the difference between Kyler and Bryce Young is that like Kyler's got that build where it's a lot easier for him to create athletic plays and do that stuff. With Bryce, it's just hard, it's so hard when you're that small, and that like being that small kind of showed. He threw 3 interceptions, and I kind of regret my Panthers pick. I don't think they're going to make it out of the South anymore. I think it's either going to be Atlanta or New Orleans now. Atlanta didn't look great either. Desmond Ridder is not a very good quarterback. He's just not. And the only thing that looked really good was Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. They looked unbelievable. They figured out something with their run game, which is really going to help. And it helps when you're playing a Panthers offense that looked horrible, because Bryce isn't going to have much help. And the fact that he looks small isn't really going to bode well for how they'll do as a team. So that's why I'm kind of starting to go out on the Panthers rather than be in from where I was. Jaguars Colts. I got to talk about Anthony Richardson. He looked a lot better than I expected. He started out the game really hot, was looking really good from the field. The Colts were winning this game for a while, and then the Jaguars kind of woke up. Calvin Ridley looks really, really good, and Trevor Lawrence was getting him the ball kind of dialed in. Travis Etienne looked solid in this game as well. The Jaguars defense then woke up in the second half. They started turning over Richardson. The the team had a couple fumbles. The Colts kind of blew this game. They had about like 4 turnovers in this game that really allowed the Jaguars to come back. The Jaguars didn't look great, but I do also think it was first game and they were figuring stuff out. With the Colts, they came out with a great game plan, and I like how Shane Steichen is going to use Richardson. I think it's going to be a good way, and I think they could actually win some games. They might win 3 or 4 games. I think Richardson will have a better rookie year than I predicted, and there might be some hope for Richardson. We'll see after that, but he actually looked decent. He didn't have a bad stat line. Those Richardson fans, you might have something. You might. I don't know. But good for Richardson. Again, I wasn't a Richardson guy. Probably still won't be. But, yeah, I mean, if you're the Jaguars, you woke up in the second half, and that's going to be a lot better for you. Moving on, 49ers Steelers. This was supposed to be one of the best games in the 1 o'clock window. It was not. The 49ers won 30-7 and kind of blew them out. Kenny Pickett, a little rough. I mean, he had a fantastic preseason, and I was all in on this Steelers team. I'm not backing down. I'm still all in. I think the 49ers are just that good. And I think the 49ers clearly showed that right now they're the best team in the NFC and looked flat out sensational. So that's basically what I'm going to say about that game. They looked crazy in that game. Commanders, Cardinals. 2 horrible teams that I barely watched the game, and Sam Howell won the game. So congratulations, Sam Howell. That's all I'll say about that game. Let's move to the 4 o'clock games. Raiders, Broncos. And this one was kind of interesting. I didn't watch too much of it, but Jimmy G looked solid. He controlled the game really well in this game. And Jacoby Myers looked really, really good. Jimmy G got him the ball a lot. He had a bad injury near the end of the game, but it's looking like he's going to be okay. Jimmy G looked really good. The Broncos started out this game flowing. Russell Wilson looked really good, and they kind of opened up the offense. Samaje Perine looked pretty good, or P. Ryan, however you want to say it. I say names wrong all the time. It's just what I do. So, and they didn't have Judy this week, but Cortland Sutton looked solid. Russell Wilson looked solid. They slowed down in the second half of Vegas. Max Crosby really controlled this game. It was all over the place. I mean, flat out all over the place. So, looking at it that way, I think Vegas is really going to have a solid year. They're going to be better than people expected. I still see these 2 teams at the bottom of the AFC West. And the funny thing is the Raiders are winning the AFC West right now, which we'll get to the other team after this. But, great win for the Raiders. And, we'll see where this leads. But I think Jimmy G is going to be able to win them some games. Moving on to probably the most interesting game in the 425 window, and that was the Dolphins and the Chargers. And I want to talk about this one a little bit, but Tua looked unbelievable. This guy had 430 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, pick. I mean, he was crazy, flat out crazy. And Tyreek Hill, oh my gosh, 200 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. He was just all over the place. And, I mean, I've been hearing it all week, but I'm going to agree to it. He's the most difficult weapon to deal with in the NFL. It's just the truth. The speed on this guy is unbelievable. And apparently, from what I'm hearing, is that Mike McDaniel and Tyreek Hill have figured out something that they didn't figure out last year, and it's so much easier for Tyreek Hill to get open in the scheme, which that's just unbelievable to think about. It's going to be easier for him to get open. Like, that's just ridiculous, I mean, it's going to be crazy. I'm really excited to see the Dolphins throughout the year. They looked like the best team in the AFC East at the moment right now, just because the Jets are going to have so many questions with Aaron Rodgers. The Bills didn't look good at all. And then we'll get to the Patriots in a second, who actually looked pretty good. But the Dolphins looked really good. Getting to the Chargers side, their offense looked a lot better under Kellen Moore, a lot better. Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly looked really good running the ball. They were sensational on that end. Mike Williams had a decent game. Keenan Allen, man, he looked good receiving, and Herbert was fantastic. I just don't know with this defense. This defense is really weird. They have so much talent, and they just never seem to be able to put it together. And I really think this is a Brandon Staley issue. I was shocked they didn't fire him this year. In fact, I was going over my NFL preview and I mentioned Brandon Staley's name, and I was like, wait, didn't he get fired after I mentioned it? in the break with Aaron. I was like, wait, didn't he get fired? And I had to look it up, and he's still there. So the fact of the matter is it's weird that he's still there. I really expected him to get fired during the offseason, but he's still there, and we're still seeing the same mistakes. So if the Chargers start out slow, I could see them moving on from the head coach real quick, putting Kellen Moore at the head coach and being like, all right, we're going with this. I think that would be the best way to do it if they start out slow, but I'm still high on the Chargers. I think the Dolphins are pretty good, and it's going to be interesting to see where those two teams land. But I think the Chargers and the Dolphins are both pretty tough teams in the AFC. And Dolphins, it's knock on wood. Hopefully Tua stays healthy. I mean, that predicting it's hard because like you just don't know. And Tua had so many head problems last year where it's just difficult to predict. But it's great to see him play really well in his first game and kind of prove people wrong and show up. Let's talk about Eagles-Patriots. This one was interesting. The Eagles kind of right away really like showed up and were balling out. Darius Slay had a pick six on Mac Jones. Jake Elliott had a field goal the first drive. And then Zeke fumbled, and the Eagles went right down and scored up 16-0 to start the game. And then the Patriots woke up. And the Patriots came right back, and they were in it to the end. The Eagles ended up winning 25-20. This Patriots team really impressed me on the defensive end because they kind of locked up Jalen Hurts. It was basically that first quarter where it was rough on both sides of the football for the Patriots, and then the rest of the game they outplayed the Eagles. It's just the truth. And near the end, the Patriots had a great drive going. They had that ball to Kendrick Bourne, I think it was, and they just couldn't get the 2 feet down for the fourth down. And that happens. It happens. It is what it is. But the Patriots offense looks so much better than last year. It really helps to have a guy that actually knows how to coach an offense, coach your offense. So that's pretty good for the Patriots. And then on the Eagles side, I think they got to figure some stuff out offensively. This Patriots defense is a very good defense, and you played in a tough environment. But there are some things that they can definitely figure out. And, I still think the Eagles can figure it out. It's just going to take some time. Again, this is week one. A lot of people are still growing and trying to figure out, okay, what's going to work and what's not going to work. It's week one. We'll see what happens. I'll put these two games together, and we'll talk about Packers-Bears actually a little bit. Packers-Bears, NFC North, we got to talk about it. The Packers are for real. They looked really, really good. The Packers won this game 38-20. Jordan Love looks good. He looks very good. And Aaron Jones, man, they're playing the Matt LaFleur system, which I think a lot of people should be a little scared of because this is a great offense, and they're really going to be tough. I think the Packers and the Lions are the clear top of the NFC North right now, and Aaron Jones looked great in this game. A.J. Dillon looked great in this game. And, the Packers got it all over the field. Romeo Doubs had 2 touchdowns in this game, which was awesome. And their defense is so good. It's a great defense. Justin Fields looks horrible. The Bears, I was not high on you to start. And I think everybody jumped off the bandwagon after seeing them play. That was the one I was right about because the Bears just didn't get much better. They didn't. And when you're going to go get a receiver for a guy that you only threw the ball with 18 times a game last year, there's no way he can get that much better in a way that you're going to be near the top of the division. It's just not going to happen, So with the Packers, congrats, you found another quarterback, and they're going to be tough. They're going to be a tough team to beat. So I'm excited to see how the NFC North plays, but the Packers are for real, for sure. Now, last game in the 4 o'clock window, Rams-Seahawks, and Matthew Stafford, man, he looked really good in this game. Got other receivers involved, Tutu Atwell with 100 yards. They looked really good, and Katron Allen was running all over the place. I believe he had 3 touchdowns. He was incredible. Cam Akers was pretty solid in this game. The Rams kind of took it to Seattle. 30-13, a really impressive win. It was tough for Seattle. They couldn't figure stuff out. They started out strong. DK got an early touchdown, and they were going a little bit, and then Geno really struggled. Aaron Donald and the Rams defense kind of figured something out where it's getting in Geno's head, and Geno didn't look great in this game. He just didn't. It's a little nerve-wracking for Seattle having the Rams without a Cooper Kupp really kind of tear your defense apart like that. But I mean, I think it's more Stafford looking a lot better than people thought, and this Rams defense looking a lot better than people thought. I think McVay had these guys ready to play, and I think he thinks they can win some games. I don't know if they're top tier in the NFC West. I would put them on the Seattle tier. I still think the Seattle team's going to end up being good. I think they were just kind of shocked on how well the Rams were playing to start, but that it's definitely going to make it interesting. I think it's clearly 49ers at the top, and then we'll see what happens with the Rams and the Seahawks. All right, last game. Cowboys-Giants. Cowboys just torched them. That's really all I need to say. The Cowboys defense looked like the best defense in football, and Dak Prescott didn't even really need to do anything. The Cowboys defense had 35 fantasy points. They were unbelievable in fantasy, and were just unbelievable in real life too. They flat out torched the Giants, and if you're a Giants fan, you should be a little worried because you guys absolutely got pummeled. And I think the Cowboys are knocking on the door of the Eagles and being like, oh, we could win this NFC East too. So you got to be very excited if you're a Cowboys fan because they looked flat out unbelievable.